So today we're going to be covering lesson 2, dividing a whole number by a fraction. So before we get started, I want to bring up a fun idea. Do you know where the division sign came from? Have you ever noticed that it kind of looks like something? Say, a fraction bar? So let's just say, what if I were to put a number? Let's just put an x over x. Right? So I put two variables over it. Doesn't this look a lot like this? And if I were to change this to maybe 2 over 5, doesn't this start to look like that division sign? Well, that's actually where the division sign came from, is that it's actually that the first symbol of division was actually fractions. So I want to give you an example of this. Let's start off with 10 divided by 2. This is the exact same thing as if I were to say 10 over 2. And just to prove it, that both sides of these are the same, if you have 10 divided by 2, this would be 5. And if you have 10 halves, oh, wait a minute, this would also be 5. Let's try it again. If I have 6 divided by 3, I'm telling you that this is the exact same thing as 6 over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and if you have 6/3, it's equal to 2 as well. And just to make sure that you believe me, I'm just going to take this 6/3. I'm going to draw it right here. So here we have my holes are cut into thirds, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so if I have 6/3, it's equal to 2 holes. Okay, I want you to try some division problems then really quick. I just want you to rewrite these as fractions and then tell me the answer. Okay, here they are. Pause the video and try them out yourself. Is this what you got? This actually can become really useful because if you're not really that comfortable with decimal division, you can always think of things as fractions and then you can just leave them that way. So, okay, that's a fun fact. Let's go ahead and get into our lesson. To begin the lesson, we're going to start with an example, just looking at how many groups of 2 1/2 are in 10. The equation that I would use to show my mathematical thinking would be 10 divided by 2 1/2. Now, because I know that I'm looking for how many 2 1/2s are in 10, then I know that I'm looking at quotative division when I'm doing this type of problem. So let's just start by drawing this out, starting with 10. So here I've drawn out 10 boxes. So this is going to represent my 10 holes. And I want to know how many 2 1/2s are in there. Now, when I think about 2 1/2, I know that I can also think of this as 5 halves. So I'm just going to take this equation here and I'm going to rewrite it. Instead of 10 divided by 2 1/2, I'm going to write it as 10 divided by 5 halves. So to figure out how many 5 halves are in 10, I'm going to start off by taking each one of my whole pieces and I'm just going to turn it into, I'm going to show where the half mark is in it. And finally, now I'm just going to look for those 5 halves. So here's 1, here's 2, 3, and 4. So then I know that if I have 10 divided by 5 halves, that will equal 4. Okay, let's go to the actual worksheet. So we're going to start this activity 1. Now, if you missed the lesson and you are doing this as makeup, I'm going to explain what's going on, and then I would like you to try to do it on your own before you continue the recording. So here's the situation. Deja and Emma are helping to upgrade their class garden by putting bricks along the front of each garden. Help them figure out how many bricks are needed. Use the tape diagram if it helps your thinking. I'm going to require, because we're working on our knowledge and understanding of this and we have to communicate it, the reason why this works later, I'm going to say that you must use a tape diagram. So I'm just going to take away this if it helps your thinking. We're going to take that away. In this, what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video. When you have completed the first page, go ahead and check back in and I will show you the answers. All right, so let's go over those problems. The first garden has 4 feet, and we're going to be using 1/3 of a foot long bricks. So here I've drawn out my 4 feet. Now I have separated mine because that way we don't get confused while we're looking at the fractions. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and each one of those individual feet will have 3 thirds in it. So if I'm looking for how many thirds I have, there will be 3 for each foot, and I have 4 feet, so there will be a total of 12. For the next one, get to where I have it. There we go. Okay, for the next one, next garden's going to be 4 feet long, and I'm looking for 2/3 bricks. So I'm looking for how many 2/3 are in there, and I've got 1, put these together, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the answer should have been 6. I have a double there. Okay, and then finally, last one. I'm going to look at this. Now, I purposely left this undone because it can be a little bit tricky, so I wanted to go over this one with you. So for this one, I have my 5 feet. So this garden's going to be 5 feet long, and I want to know how many large bricks, 2/3, will fit in them. Well, same as before, I can see my answer here pretty quick. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But then I have this weird one piece over, and I can't call it 8 because it's not quite enough. So if I want to think about what this is, I want to think, well, it's not enough to be considered 8. What would I need to make it 8? And I would think, well, I would need to come over here and I would need to add in another half. But I don't have that. I'm sorry, another third, not another half. And so I would need one more third for the 2/3. So instead, I've got 1/2 of a 2/3 piece. So if I have 5 divided by 2/3, it will be 7 and 1/2. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, once again, I'm going to have you do this page first. Try to work it out on your own, and then you can check back with me on the video. Just in general, here you have Deja and Emma are trying to work out problem number 3, and you're going to give some advice to help them with their thinking. And then same thing down here. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and resume when you're ready. Okay, for this section, for Deja's work, Deja said that if you take 5 and divide it by 2/3, it has to be less than 5 because we're dividing. So the reason why this is wrong is because this concept only works if you're thinking about partitive division. If we're dividing a whole number by a fraction, then we want to be thinking about quotative division. And oftentimes, when we're dividing a whole number by a fraction, it's often that it's going to be bigger because we're looking at fractional pieces. How many fractional pieces are within the whole? That leads us to the next one, which is Emma's work. She says you need 7 1/3 bricks because there are 7 whole bricks and 1/3 left over. And that's not true because there is 1/3 left over, but because we are looking for how many 2/3 are in 5, because the bricks are going to be 2/3, we know that 1/3 is going to be half of the 2/3. So that's the advice that we should have been giving there. Now let's go down to the next section here. Emma wrote 4 1/4 divided by 3/4. Help her answer the different questions about bricks and gardens. So for this one, you should have gotten that 4 1/4 would be the length of the garden, and 3/4 would be the size of the bricks. The diagram would look like this, where we drew out 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're looking at how many 3/4 pieces are going to be in there, and we would have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have 2 out of the 3 pieces we need, so it's 2/3. So 4 1/4 divided by 3/4 is going to be equal to 5 2/3. All right, and we're to the last part, which is going to be just practicing what we've learned. So in here is a table. I want you to practice finding the division sentence, making the tape diagram, and then finding the answer. Go ahead and pause the video now, fill out the worksheet, and then we'll check your answers. Okay, go ahead and check your answers and see if this is what you got. I'm going to move on to the next slide, so if you need more time, please pause it. On this last slide, what I want to do is kind of summarize what we've done and come up with a rule. Let's say that I'm going to start off with the equation of 2 divided by 3/5, which we've done in the previous page. And so if I want to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by looking at, I've got 2 wholes, which I'm going to write as 2 over 1. Now, when I'm looking at this problem, I'm trying to figure out how many 3/5 are in 2. But before I can do that, I've got to start off by taking each one of these wholes and dividing it into fifths, or sectioning it off into fifths. And when I do that, it changes the number of pieces that I'm focusing on, doesn't it? I now no longer am looking at 2 pieces as the 2 wholes. Now I'm going to be looking at all of these, which there's going to be 10 of them. There's 5 here and there's 5 here. So now I'm looking at 10. There's 2 sets of 5. So I'm taking this 2, and what I'm really doing is I'm going to be multiplying it by 5. When I do that, I need to know how many sections of 3, because I'm looking for 3/5. So in order to figure out how many 3/5 are in here, I'm actually going to be dividing this by 3 or multiplying it by 1/3. So I started off with 2, and that didn't change at all. That still stayed there, right? But then I took my 3/5 and I changed it, and instead of being in my numerator, my 3 got put into my denominator. And my 5 here that was in my denominator is now in my numerator. And so when I think of this and I start to realize what's going on, well, multiplication, the order doesn't matter, right? So I could look at this here as I could have 1/3 5 times. So I could rewrite this problem as 2 times 5 over 3. In that case, I'm just keeping my first number, but I'm finding the reciprocal of the second one. And this reciprocal just means the flip or inverted fraction. Now, just to verify this, because we're always going to be the skeptic, we know that in our last problem that we got that if we have 2 divided by 3/5, that I would get the answer would be 1, 2, 3, and 1/3. So I should get 3 and 1/3. Let's check it out. So if I have 2 times 5/3, I'm going to rewrite this as 2 over 1 times 5/3. And there's that 2 times 10 that we had. 2 times 5, which is equal to 10. And then divided by 1 times 3 is going to be 3. And if I have 10/3, I'm going to have 3 and 1/3. Hey, look at that. I got the same answer. Okay, that's going to be all for this lesson. Sorry, this is a little bit of a long one. Go ahead and make sure that you practice those practice problems.